Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? Hope you're all fit and well. It's Thursday, yeah, nearly the week over. How are we all doing today? Got show's turned on its head slightly today. One of our videos is nearly 15 minutes long, so I've shortened the length of our morning monologue today to accommodate for that. I hope I don't keep you away from whatever it is you're up to today for too long. But as I say, we've got an in-depth look. Hang on a minute. Is everybody saying that? I'm seeing sound here. Can anybody hear me? Bear with me a second. I'll check it somewhere else. Let's have a look. If anybody can let me know if they can hear me, that would be very useful. Let's have a look. Dan, I think it may be you actually, because I've just checked it. I can hear me loud and clear. I think it may be you. Gary says it sounds good here. Thank you, Gary. And here, okay, fine, okay. Ignore everything that I said up to this point. Yes. Today, as I said, bit of an imbalance. The morning monologue today is quite short. Some of the videos that we're going to play for you are quite long. Hope that doesn't upset you too much. Dan, Gary saying, I think Dan's at it. Yeah. I tell you what, it wouldn't take much to throw me off my game. All you have to do is arrive and say, can't hear you. And that's it. I'm screwed. I don't know what to do after that. And Mick Norton is here as well saying, good morning, Mark. Sounds okay. Good. Fantastic stuff. Let me just do a few very quick bits and pieces here. That's the wrong button. My apologies. See, Dan, you've really scuppered me here. Mark Whiting has just arrived, and Chris Ford has just arrived. So I think we have a quorum of people, so we can actually crack on. So without further ado, let me roll the intro and get this show. Hang on a minute. Let me get that out of the way. Let's get this show on the road, starting with this. Dan, oops, sorry. Yeah, that's it. You just throw a grenade into my professional broadcast and say, oops, sorry, why don't you? Thank you, Dan. It is Thursday, the 22nd of January. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition, the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming, and the authentic voice of the global demolition industry. Good morning, one and all. In today's show, we're going behind the scenes with an Australian Caterpillar dealer. We're going deep, and I do mean deep, on the Volvo A40 articulated hauler. We're going to be bringing you the untold story of Drott. Yes, those of a certain age will remember the Drott. Well, we've got their untold story, and we are obviously continuing our voyage to Vegas ahead of ConExpo, which is now 5 and a bit weeks away or thereabouts. Plus, I flagged this up yesterday. The title doesn't really tell you anything about it, but my morning monologue today is called 50 Words for Snow. Yeah. I'm aiming this at all of you, but one thing I will say ahead of the morning monologue, and I'm thinking particularly here of Jim Turner. Basically, the 50 Words for Snow is talking about the various expressions that we have around this industry. Don't want them now. Wait until the morning monologue rolls around, and I'd like to see what else everybody else comes up with in terms of very industry-specific expressions and sayings. Sorry, the tea's gone down the wrong hole this morning. So, without further ado, let's have a bit of this, and then we're going down under with the same company. This is Cat. We'll get to the Caterpillar film in just a moment, but there's a very important question coming from the chat, which is this. Gary Muirhead says, is it too early for a double-decker? I've just found one in my packed lunch bag. Well, the first answer is it is never, not ever too early. Never too early for a double-decker. And the second thing, it is, where are we? It is 10:07. A couple of days ago, you know, when we had that really, really heavy rain, my wife was going out and taking the car with her. And she knows what I'm like. As soon as she goes out and takes the car with her, I sneak off down to the local cafe. But it was absolutely chucking it down, and I would have had to walk there in the rain. So she very kindly went out and bought me a sandwich and a packet of crisps and, you know, set me up for the day. She left here at about 11:15. I finished doing this about 11:30 and then scoffed a lot. Used to do that at school. Rarely did I ever have a packed lunch, but on the rare occasions that I did, never ever did I make it to lunchtime. It'd be scoffed quietly. So yeah, Gary, you have my not that I'm in charge of these things, but you have my permission to consume said double-decker. Ken Hatcher is in the house. Let's press his button as well. You've arrived just in time for the first of our films, Ken. And this is, we're going behind the scenes with a Caterpillar dealer down under, like this.
Hi, my name is Ross Anderson and I'm the business manager of sales here at William Adams in Victoria and Tasmania. And my cat journey started around 10 years ago, and I've had the pleasure of doing it both in North America, where cat started 100 years ago, and now here in Australia with William Adams. The William Adams story started way back in 1884, and in 1926, 99 years ago, William Adams became the cat dealer for Victoria and Tasmania 1 year and 1 day after Caterpillar was founded. My journey started in the dirt, running machines and running projects for about 15 years. And running those machines, especially those cat machines, really gave me a true appreciation of the brand, the quality, and the support that comes with that. I now have the responsibility and accountability for all of new equipment and aftermarket sales for William Adams across Victoria and Tasmania. And we're supporting over 5,000 customers across a multitude of industries that build communities that we live in today. The next generation of legacy of William Adams started 50 years ago when Dale Elphinstone purchased the dealership. And that's the same dealership that he completed his apprenticeship a number of years ago. So it really drives home the fact that this is a family-run business that we work in today. And our people are probably our strongest commodity. And when we talk about our people, it's not just about our employees, it's about our customers and the communities that we support as well. William Adams has got around 600 employees covering 13 branches across Victoria and Tasmania, and that's what makes us what we are today. The Elphinstone Group was founded on Dale's legacy of underground mining equipment, and we're still heavily involved in that today as a dealership, and that's what drives us forward into innovation. I've seen firsthand how important it is to understand what our customers do in the community and how we can support them. From construction to mining to ag to local council and quarrying, we know there are challenges in the business, and we're there to step up to support our customers through all those challenges. When you look at our business and the programs we have in place to support our employees, it really goes to show when we've got apprentices that are now general managers and managing directors and product managers who have been in the business for 35 to 40 years. It's truly inspiring to see what our people can do within this business. Looking back to the very first cat machine I sold when I was in sales, all the way through to moving into product support and supporting customers when those machines went down, and seeing the joy on their faces, seeing the sigh of relief when their machine's back up and running, you know, it's just so good to reflect on, and it really gives me so much pride in the team and the business and what we're doing today to support our customers. And that really also shows that how far Caterpillar's gone with their machines and their technology. If you look back to the early track-type tractors, the very first ones that hit the ground, or to those wheel loaders, and now to see these technology-driven machines that are keeping people safer, they're making job sites more productive, and you know what? They're also even more sustainable for the environment in which we live. At William Adams, we're really privileged to be able to bring CAT's innovative products to the market and to our customers. We're expanding our capability monthly and yearly to be able to keep up with the demand. From our technology department to our SOS lab doing over 100,000 samples a year, we're here to make sure customers understand their machines, whether it's a single machine or an entire fleet. As we look back on 99 years of William Adams and 100 years of Caterpillar, it's an incredible legacy. A legacy that's built on our customers, built on our employees, and it's built on our products. And it's also built the communities that we live in. And we thank each and every one of you for the support along the way. I think what's most exciting though is looking ahead to the next chapter, the next innovation, the next generation that is going to bring this business and these products into the future. The past has been impressive, but the next chapter, that's what we're looking forward to. 100 years of William Adams.
I'll deal with the comments on that film first. Dan says, the new Cat isn't the same as the older generation for power. Too much technology and new machines in construction now. Interesting. Yeah, Gary Muirhead on the same thing. Fantastic to hear and take advice from a sales representative or manager that's actually operated or owned the equipment they're trying to sell you. I used to say the same. I went back when I was on Contract Journal. Virtually everybody that I worked beside weren't. I wouldn't say I was unique, but I was a journalist through and through. Others were ex-construction people, civil engineers, that kind of thing, who happened to write as well. Let's have a look. Ken Hatcher saying there's something about a cat. Dan saying, wow. Yeah, we're going back to all things to do with food. Gary Muirhead was breaking open his double-decker. Chris says, if you don't want your double-decker, Gary, I'm sure I can give it a good home. Too late, just finished it, he says. Jim, yeah, this is so true. Wet days waiting around are fatal for getting snapped up. That's eating all your pack up. It really is. Really is. I know when I've been kind of racing against the clock and I've done a packed lunch and put it in the car, I think, well, I'll stop for lunch and I'll have a bite to eat and a flask of coffee. Nope, gone long before I've stopped anywhere. Chris Ford, bugger, I'll have to make do with this Kit Kat. To which Gary says, is it 2 fingers or can you handle 4 fingers? Not entirely sure we're talking exactly about Kit Kats at that point. Too tight to buy a 4-finger, have to make do with 2 fingers. Okay. The less said about all that, the better, I think. Our next film, as I say, is about 14 minutes long. It's getting down and dirty with the Volvo A40 ADT. So let me get this out of the way, and then I'll hand you over to the fine folks at Volvo.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
You don't need to know this, but the system that I'm using to do this has got a 10-minute limit for uploaded videos. So on this instance, I'm going to have to dredge this off my hard drive, which I'm doing as we speak. It is here somewhere. Yeah, 14 minutes on the Volvo A40. So sit back and enjoy.
Today we're going to do a walk around of the new A40J. My name's Tyler Smith. I'm the product manager for Volvo Articulated Haulers here in Region North America. So as you can see with our A40J, we've done significant differences throughout the generational change from the G to the J model line. The most noticeable difference is going to be the cab and the entryway platform getting into this truck. So we've increased the access points getting into the Volvo Articulated Hauler for better accesses as well as better serviceability. As we work our way around our truck, I'm going to talk about some significant differences that we have and some things that you should make sure you talk about when you're doing your daily walk-arounds and your selling points on the Volvo Articulated Hauler. So first thing that we've done is we've increased the serviceability access on the Volvo Articulated Hauler. So no longer are we opening the hood up on the front side of the truck, we're now going to open it up on the side. By just simply pushing the up button, we're going to raise our hood up. We're going to actually be able to go over 90 degrees with the hood access for easy, good serviceability of this articulated hauler. As you can see with the hood fully raised up, we have industry-leading serviceability and service access on the Arctic truck. With the front, we've now encapsulated the steps underneath the hood of the engine compartment. So this is the better access and better protection of our stepping surfaces on the articulated hauler. The powertrain on this, the full lineup of Volvo articulated haulers now is Volvo engine, Volvo transmission, and Volvo axles. So you get the best harmony the whole way through the entire truck. You can put the power from the engine to the ground in the most efficient format. The A40 has 469 horsepower with a payload capacity of 43 short tons. With the tailgate on this truck, we can carry 32.8 cubic yards. Some serviceability improvements that we've done is now our oil filters are captive oil filters and our fuel filters are captive fuel filters. On top of that, our fuel filter element now is electronic priming system. So we just push this button here and we will prime the fuel pumps, the fuel filters. We no longer need to manually prime the fuel filtration system anymore. Still, one of our talking points is a multi-piece hood. The hood design is very large. With the multi-piece hood, we went from a 3-piece design to a 4-piece design hood. If it does become damaged at any point in time, the customer is able to replace one of the pieces and not the entire hood, saving the customer money at the end. The lockout tagout on the G-Series truck was encapsulated in the battery compartment on the left side of the hauler. Now we have changed our lockout tagout and our service lockout here to the right side of the hauler being ground level. You get 2 jump start ports, so positive and a negative, and optionally, you can get the ISO jump start connector port here. Standard tires on the A40 are going to be the 29.5 branded tires. We do have optional 875 tires that will have better ground pressure on if you get into soft underfooting on this truck. In the center joint, we have done some significant changes. We have simplified the umbilical that goes from the tractor to the trailer unit. We have also redesigned the exhaust bed heat. As you can see on this truck, it is a much more simplified system to protect itself as we go. Another thing that we have done is we have optimized our hydraulic filtration system. So by optimizing the hydraulics filtration system, we have reduced the volume of oil that we are having to change on our serviceability. When it comes to the hydraulic tanks on the back side of the truck, we split our hydraulic oil and our wet brake oil. That way we're able to protect ourselves throughout the entire truck. So every time we step on the brakes, the brake friction disc material stays in the brake system. The hydraulic oil stays in the hydraulic system. This is to get better heat transfer as well as longevity in the braking surface. Something else that we do now at Volvo, and we've seen a lot of success with this on particularly our A60, is now we have the optional hydraulic front suspension available in the A35, A40, and A45. What that does is it gives the operator a much better ride than the standard rubber suspension that we had on the previous G generation articulated haulers. One of the best selling features that we have at Volvo is our lifetime frame guarantee, front frame, rear frame, as well as we have a lifetime guarantee of our hitch. What we're guaranteeing in our hitch is our top pin, bottom pin, and our structural integrity of the articulation joint. Something else that we do here at Volvo is our oscillation joint on our hitch. From the factory, it's 2 double taper roller bearings sealed at factory. So there is no maintenance on this hitch, on the oscillation part of the hitch that needs to be done. It's a maintenance-free oscillation port. Another thing that we do in Volvo is our steering system. Our steering system is unique to the industry. It's hydromechanical, self-compensating with feedback rod. Essentially what that means is when the operator is traveling at high rates of speed on the haul road, the operator is not having to chase the wheel as they're driving. The machine is doing it automatically with the feedback rod that's encapsulated on the hitch unit, giving feedback to the tractor unit. So it's less fatiguing for the operator. We have full power the whole way through the system. So even if the RPMs drop and you're trying to turn the truck, you have maximum steering forces at all points in time. Another notable item that we can talk about on the hauler is our ground clearance. As you can see, our ground clearance is very, very good with our articulated hauler. Because of the high hitch that we mount on our truck, we have better ground clearance as well as better stability than the competition that are out there on the marketplace. The articulated hauler is built with Hardox 450 steel, so it's a very strong steel. As we continue to go around our walk around, our cylinders are field serviceable. As you can see in the top caps, we have Allen bolts in the top part. So we don't need to take our hydraulic cylinders if they do have any sort of damage or leak over the time. We don't need to take them to a machine shop. We can rebuild them in the field to save the customer money in the long term. Another redesign that we have done on the J-Series hauler is the tailgate. As you can see, the tailgate design has changed a little bit. And part of that design change is we've made the arms longer. By making the arms longer, we do two things. We're actually opening the tailgate wider, faster, as well as we are reducing the bounce of the tailgate when we're driving down the haul road. Another feature that we have in the Volvo articulated hauler is our outboard wet disc brakes. By having the brakes closest to the tire, we increase our braking power on the truck. So when you need to put the brakes to the floor, you are able to stop this truck appropriately. Another thing that we do with our externally outboard wet disc brakes is we have brake wear indicators mounted on all 6 wheels of the truck. We also have brakes on all 6 wheels of the truck too. Another piece to the Volvo articulated hauler is our straddle mount bogey beam system. With our straddle mount bogey beam system, we are able to fully support and keep our tires as flat as long as possible. This is to help prevent uneven tire wear and prolong longevity of the tires themselves. The onboard weighing system hardware is standard on all the J-Series haulers. This is a non-deletable item. If you need onboard weighing software, we can supply that for an additional cost. Ground level greasing is another item that we've added to the J-Series haulers. On the previous G generation, we had whip hoses mounted to our hoist cylinders, top part of our hoist cylinders, as well as our tailgate arms. On the J-Series haulers, we now have ground level grease access points that you can see right here. We have also updated our camera system. Our camera system is now a high definition camera system. Standard, we have the rear view camera and the side view camera. There's an optional forward facing camera that you can see the very front bumper of the truck as well. Another selling feature that we have is the overhang of our bed. So from the hinge point to the actual point that we dump is much longer than everybody else out on the marketplace. What that helps with is pushing the material away from the truck when you are dumping. The other thing that it helps with is material retention. As you're driving up hills, the material tends to stay in the bed much better, that we don't have that short overhang. Other things that we're going to talk about on the Volvo articulated hauler is we have an optional headboard, flip-up headboard for more material retention inside the truck. We have optional sideboards that we can put on it, as well as the tailgate. We have also optimized our hydraulic lines that are coming to our hoist cylinders. As you can see, it is a much cleaner fix on those hydraulic lines as we're putting them up into the truck. Another thing on this J-Series hauler now is all the lights are LED. We also have ambient lighting the whole way around this truck now. So when the operator is showing up for shift and it's still dark out, they are able to see around the entire truck. Some of those items that you can see with the ambient lighting is cab entry lights, lights around your service points on your mirrors, light in your fuel area, light in your DEF area. There's also a light in the engine compartment too, so when the operator opens up the hood to inspect the oil at the beginning of their shift, they're able to see. They don't need a headlamp to be on it. On the machine lighting, we've moved our machine LED lighting to the outside mirrors for better light distribution. A few more features to talk about on the J-Series articulated hauler is the increased visibility around the truck. As you can tell, we've made the windshield much larger, as well as changed the slope design of the hood to improve the visibility around the front and the sides of the hauler. Here inside the hauler as well, we have taken a lot of switches and buttons away that were unnecessarily used. So now we've simplified the dash and made it more intuitive for the operator. Many of the items that are here on this truck are set and forget. We don't need to touch them every single day. Another item that we will talk about is the hanging pedals. So now our pedals are all hanging. We have our retarder pedal on the left side, brake pedal, and throttle pedal. By having them hanging, they're much more ergonomic friendly for the operator, as well as you have less buildup of material underneath them. Another thing that we've changed from the floor is our 6x6 button. Now we have elevated our 6x6 button up for more ergonomic friendliness for the operator. Our control levers on the right side have been simplified too. So to shift the truck into forward gear, we're just simply going to push it forward. For reverse, we're going to pull it backwards. We have a neutral button here. We have our dump lever here for easy accessibility and easy learning for the newer operator. We have cruise control, downhill speed control, engine brake, and our traction control switch all at the fingertips of the operator. Our parking brake is recessed, so our operator is able to not accidentally hit that parking brake for any sort of reason. We also standardly now have a hot cold box for the operator to keep their lunches sitting in. So they can keep drinks cold, as well as if they have warm food, they can put their food in there to keep it warm throughout their long hours of shift. This is operated solely by a switch in its own independent unit. We do not use the AC system to control this hot cold box. Thanks for spending time with me today on this A40J walk around.
Just realised I turned my microphone off. I do apologise because I was coughing in the background. Here we go. Ken says, trucks are not for me. 2 days on them, I'd fall asleep. I was saying, I think with the quarry where you're, going to face, going to the crusher, clearing up here and there, I think there'd be a bit more variety in it. But when you're in a mine machine, a mining hauler, where you're literally just one way back, that would be a bit of a pain. Ken asked a question as well. I wonder if it's exactly the same as the UK model. I think most of the key functions would be the same, pretty much around the world. But there are fundamental differences, particularly with things like emissions and that kind of thing. The American standard will be marginally different to the European. The European will be marginally different to maybe Africa or whatever it might be. But and apologies again for the sound. When I'm playing a video off my hard drive, just so you know, it keeps the microphone open. When I play other videos that are already uploaded, it cuts the microphone out. So I turned it off so you couldn't hear me coughing and sneezing in the background, and then forgot to put it back on again. Dan says, from time to time, I don't mind a truck, but I couldn't sit in one for long. No, I fully understand that. Although, I have to say, very, very comfy. And a cool box or a hot box for your food and stuff. Might take me a while to get bored with that. Gary says I had to go on one of the new A45s on site. Amazing piece of kit. Yeah, I bet it is. And Ken Hatter is on his way back to work, which means that you'll miss our look back at the Drott. Also means you'll miss my morning monologue 50 words for snow. Hey ho. Watch it on catch up. That's what I'd say. We'll be back with that Drott trip down memory lane in just a moment after this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Have to go and have a look at this. Mark Whiting has just said, Let's Dig 18 has had the A40 on demo. An impressive truck. I'm sure it is. Let's be absolutely honest. Is anyone expecting Volvo to make a bad ADT? I think you'll have a long wait before that happens. When I first arrived, it's a great fanfare. When I first arrived in the demolition industry, lots of the old boys used to talk to me about Drotts. Drotts were a big thing back in the day. I kind of miss them. I saw a few, and I've seen some at vintage fairs and stuff like that. But by and large, I was a bit too late. But it was a name that kicked around for a long time. In fact, in some ways, I think somebody said it. May have been Andy Dalvell said this. He assumed that Drott was a type of machine, when in actual fact, it's the name of the manufacturer. So we've taken a trip down memory lane to bring you the history of Drott.
You ever hear of a brand that got so big, so dominant, that its name just became the machine itself? Well, that is the incredible story of Drott Manufacturing. This is a company whose inventions didn't just help build our world. They literally changed the words people used on the job site.
So let me ask you, have you ever heard of a Drott? Chances are, probably not, right? Unless you're deep in the construction or forestry game. But, for decades, that name was as common as saying Kleenex for a tissue or Band-Aid for a bandage. So how in the world does that happen? And it's absolutely true. I mean, you go to places like the UK or Australia, and the brand name Drott just straight up became the word for any crawler loader of its kind. You wouldn't be on a job site yelling for the tracked loader. No way. You just say, hey, get the Drott.
So this is that story. We're going to dive into how a relatively small company from Wisconsin created machines that were so revolutionary, so game-changing, that their name just got absorbed into the vocabulary of an entire industry. It's an amazing tale.
All right, let's kick things off. Section 1, From Woods to Workshop. This is all about how one man's tough, hands-on experience really planted the seed for a revolution. So our story really kicks off with a guy named Edward Drott, and he wasn't some suit in an office, not at all. Get this. At just 14 years old, he was a lumberjack working in the super rugged timber industry of northern Wisconsin. So he was seeing firsthand every single day the brutal limits of manual labor. He didn't just see a problem, he lived it. And that right there made all the difference. And you can totally see his ambition just by looking at how fast the company grew. He starts out in 1916 just serving the local loggers in Butternut, Wisconsin. But pretty quick he realizes, okay, I gotta think bigger than this. By 1923, he's reorganized, moved to Wausau. A year later, he's in the industrial hub of Milwaukee. And then, just 4 years after that, in 1928, he opens this grand, almost palatial showroom. I mean, this wasn't just a workshop anymore. This was a statement. He was telling the world, Drott is here to make a serious mark.
Okay, which brings us right to section 2, the bucket that did everything. And believe me, this is the invention that really put Drott on the map and pretty much changed the construction game forever.
So, what was the big problem Drott was trying to solve here? Well, it was actually pretty simple, but it was a huge headache and super costly. Think about it. On a typical job site, a contractor needed a whole fleet of machines, a bulldozer to push dirt, a scraper to level it all out, a bucket loader to lift stuff, and a clamshell to grab things. We're talking 4 different, very expensive machines for one job.
And Drott's solution? Well, it was just brilliant in its simplicity. He patented what became known as the 4-in-1 bucket. It was this one single attachment that, thanks to a really clever split bucket design, could do all 4 of those jobs. It could act as a standard bucket for lifting, sure, but it could also be a bulldozer for pushing, a clamshell for grabbing, and a scraper for leveling the ground. Literally 4 machines in one attachment. Genius.
And the impact of this? Oh, it was massive. Just massive. All of a sudden, one machine with one operator could do the work of 4. I mean, imagine you're a small or medium-sized contractor. This was an absolute game changer. It just slashed their costs and made them unbelievably more efficient overnight. This success was so complete, so total, that it led to something we call a genericized trademark. You see this all the time, right? With names like Kleenex or Band-Aid. The brand name just becomes the regular word for the product. Well, that's exactly the level of market dominance the 4-in-1 bucket hit. It wasn't a crawler loader anymore. It was just a Drott. But here's the thing. A great invention is really only half the battle, right? I mean, how do you get it into the hands of people in every corner of the globe? Well, that brings us to our next section, an unstoppable partnership. So Drott figured out how to scale up its innovation, and they did it through a perfect partnership with International Harvester, who were, an absolute giant in the tractor industry. It was the perfect match. Drott brought the brilliant engineering, the patents, the 4-in-1 bucket itself, and International Harvester, they provided the powerful tractor platforms to mount it on, and, this is the crucial part, their massive global sales network. Each company had exactly what the other one needed.
And the result of this team-up was the International Drott line of machines. And throughout the 1950s, these things were sold globally and were just everywhere. They completely dominated construction sites. This partnership is what took Drott from being a clever Wisconsin company to a true global powerhouse. But Drott wasn't a one-hit wonder, not by a long shot. So moving into section 4, we're going to see how the company kept evolving, pivoting from just making awesome attachments to building entirely new revolutionary machines of their own.
Man, the 1960s were just an unbelievably transformative decade for them. They totally embraced the hydraulic revolution. In '62, they bought the rights to this French hydraulic backhoe called the Jumbo. Then boom, just a few years later in '65, they introduced their own revolutionary cruise air-wheeled excavator. Then in '68, they invent the Fellerbuncher for logging. And in that same year, they became so successful that they were acquired by a massive corporation. What a whirlwind.
So let's break down those two huge inventions. First up was the Cruiser. Now this was a self-propelled excavator on wheels that could actually drive itself down the road at up to 30 miles per hour. And you might think, okay, so what? But the big deal was, before this, you needed a giant, expensive trailer to haul an excavator from one job to the next. The Cruiser completely got rid of that problem, which made it absolutely perfect for city work and road repairs. And then, in a really cool full-circle moment, Edward's son, Irv Drott, took the company right back to its logging roots. The industry was facing a huge labor crisis, and manual tree felling was just incredibly dangerous work. So he invented the Fellerbuncher. This amazing machine let a single operator, sitting safely inside a steel cab, grab a tree, cut it at the base, and stack it neatly. We're talking hundreds of trees a day. It totally transformed the safety and the efficiency of modern forestry. Just an incredible leap forward.
And all of this brings us to our final section, a legacy cast in steel. Because the story of Drott doesn't really end when the company gets sold. In a weird way, that's where its true legacy gets locked in forever.
So yeah, in 1968, Drott was bought by a big conglomerate called Tenneco and then merged into its JI Case division. But you gotta understand, this wasn't a story of failure. It was the ultimate validation. Drott's technology had become so essential, so fundamental to the industry that was just too valuable to stay independent. It needed to be everywhere.
And if you look around today, the Drott DNA is still everywhere. That 4-in-1 bucket concept, it's now a standard attachment you can get from basically any brand. The Fellerbuncher, it became the essential tool for modern, safer forestry. That Cruiser concept of a high-speed excavator, it lives on in all the modern wheeled excavators we see today. Even their carry deck crane line is still around, now part of the Manitowoc Company. The ideas were just so powerful, they outgrew the company itself.
And this quote here really just sums it all up perfectly. The legacy of Drott manufacturing is found not in a surviving corporate entity, but in the standardized mechanisms of modern heavy industry. You're not going to find a brand new machine with a Drott name on it today, but its legacy is right there, cast in the steel of the machines that build our world.
Which kind of leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about, right? What are the innovations happening today that are becoming so essential, so baked into the background of our lives, that just like the Drott, we're already starting to forget they were ever a revolutionary invention in the first place?
Drott. There you go. Dad says, great video. Very informative. Thank you, Dad. Operated a Drott, says Mick, a TD6 on Gibraltar during 1969. Great tool for working in multifarious confined spaces, especially tunnel complexes. Yeah, the old Demolition boys used to use them with wire ropes to pull down buildings. Morning, sir. Sorry I'm late. The dog ate my homework. I hate when that happens. You are here to find out something else that's going to be happening in Las Vegas in a few weeks' time. Just to very quickly on that Drott thing, I am early stages, probably halfway through, turning all of that and a whole lot more into one of our publications, our Icon series. I think we've done Smalley and we did HiMac. We're going to do another one on that. So watch this space. We're going to be back. Let's talk Las Vegas after this. Yeah, another look ahead to ConExpo 2026.
Let's take a glimpse at what's in store for 2026. Demos of the latest equipment and tech in the industry, more opportunities to make connections, industry-leading education that you can actually take back and apply on the job. Endless ways to gain a competitive advantage and take your business to the next level. The countdown is on and your time to save is running out. See you at Con Expo ConAg 2026.
Yeah, it's coming around very, very fast. That pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into my morning monologue. If you can't stick around for that, please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. Hope to see you again very soon. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I'll be back immediately after the thing I'm about to play. Just very quickly. Today's morning monologue is a little bit shorter than usual. Only a minute or so, but it's a little bit shorter. Just want to give you a quick idea of the kind of the inspiration behind this. I kind of have two things that I spend a lot of my time doing. Looking at demolition and construction equipment would be that, and then over here, writing and reading. The two very rarely cross over. In the grand schemes of a sort of Venn diagram of my personal interests, the two are usually not that close together. In the morning monologue, they're going to do that, and that little bit in the middle there, that's what today's morning monologue is all about. So let me press the button and bring it to you now. It's said that the Inuit people have 50 words for snow because it's something they contend with daily. Demolition has almost as many expressions for non-payment, presumably for the same reason. It's a long-standing piece of folklore that the Inuit people have 50 words for snow, while Kate Bush found the idea evocative enough to title an album after it. Modern linguists are often more skeptical, arguing that the structure of the language simply allows for endless descriptions of frozen water rather than 50 distinct nouns. Yet, that myth persists because it feels instinctively true. If you're quite literally surrounded by something every waking hour of your life, you'd naturally seek out new and interesting ways to categorize it. Which might explain why the British demolition and construction industry has developed such a rich, colourful vocabulary for the things that define its landscape. Consider the excavator. To the person in the street, it's a digger or often a JCB. To the operator, it's a 360 or a hydraulic excavator. Should it happen to be mounted on tyres rather than tracks, it becomes a rubber duck or a duck for short. When a machine develops a fault, it's broken down, conked out, blown up, gone fut, given up the ghost, packed up, gone on the blink, gone kaput, died, or my dad's personal favourite, it's gone up the pictures. However, the true depth of the industry's dictionary is revealed even more when things go wrong. It's a truly telling reflection of the job that we have. It's truly telling reflection of the job that we have so many ways to describe less positive events. Falls from height remain the industry's most lethal hazard, yet the language used to describe them is often strangely softened, perhaps as a way of managing the underlying dread. A fall is referred to as a spill, a tumble, or a plunge. On the darker side of sight humour, it's taking the quick way down. Similarly, those unfortunate enough to be struck by falling debris or moving plant haven't just suffered a medical emergency, they've caught a stray, been clobbered, or got a whack. Companies slide into liquidation, call in the administrators, shut up shop, go bust, go under, go down, go pop, go to the wall, go belly up, go tits up, close the gates, pull down the shutters, fold, collapse, shut down, close down, and go broke. But in the world of synonyms, there is one experience that reigns supreme in the demolition and construction sector: the unpaid debt. Perhaps because it's the most common grievance, the list of expressions for being financially left high and dry is exhaustive. In this industry, you don't just fail to get paid or lose money. You've been taken for a ride, taken to the cleaners, taken a hit. You've been knocked, mugged off, shafted, tucked up, had your leg lifted. You've been stitched up, turned over, taken for a mug, taken for a lemon. You've been taken in, duped, hosed, suckered, stiffed, stung, fooled, fleeced, cheated, swindled, milked, diddled, screwed, strung along, finagled, hoodwinked, and bamboozled. It's not perhaps as prosaic as 50 words for snow, and Kate Bush is unlikely to write a song about it. But it does speak volumes for the frequency with which this industry faces unpaid bills. It has just so many expressions to describe it. There you are. I don't know if you enjoyed it, but I enjoyed writing it. Mick Norton says, arse clenching moment my drop when the master clutch linkage became detached as I was pushing material toward a 200-foot drop. Frantic activation of both steering clutch levers to bring me to a halt very close to the edge. It's the stuff of nightmares, that. And the approach of a 200-foot drop, and there's not a great deal you can do about it. You could call it 50 Shades of Nah. I really wish I'd thought of that. I really do wish I'd thought of that. As I say, I've done it. I've done it for fun, primarily my fun, I think. But isn't that telling? You know, we've got 5 or 6 words for an excavator, but we've got, I think it was 40 odd for not being paid. Anybody remember the? I can't remember if it was the 80s or the late 80s or the early 90s. There was a movie called Broken Arrow, starring John Travolta as an American pilot gone rogue, and Christian Slater as the guy basically tasked with catching him. And John Travolta's character had stolen a nuclear missile. And at one point, somebody said over a radio, "We have a broken arrow," and apparently that is the words used to describe the loss of a nuclear missile. And Christian Slater actually says, it's a famous quote from the movie, "I don't know what scares me the most: the fact that it happened, the fact that we've lost a missile, or the fact that it happens so often that we've got a name for it." That's that. That is exactly that. It happens so often that we've got 40 odd names for it. I can tell you for tomorrow, my morning monologue is going to be a non-political, mostly, reflection on the World Economic Forum meeting in Davos this week, in which I'm going to try to compare Donald Trump and his saber rattling and his threats of force and military intervention and tariffs with tier 1 contractors in the UK. It makes sense in my head. I just need to make it make sense when I actually write it down. But that's what you've got to look forward to tomorrow. On the subject of 50 words for snow, does anybody, I know Jim's quite the one, he's quite the collector of local colloquialisms. If anyone's got any other words or phrases for being taken for a ride financially, I'd love to hear them. I was hoping to put a poll on Demolition Insider, but it only allows me to do it and allow people to answer preset questions. I can't just leave it open for say, oh yeah, where I come from, we call that being whatever. I can't do that. But if you've got any suggestions on how to describe having your leg lifted financially, which I think is a great one, I'd love to hear from you. Please send those over to me when you get a moment. That just about wraps up the show for today. I'll be back tomorrow, 10 a.m. for yet more of the same. Oh, very quickly. Just want to bring you details of this. JCB has secured a massive deal to supply the United States Armed Forces with more than 500 machines in a deal worth up to $205 million. The contract for 535 militarized versions of JCB's 437 HT wheel loader have been secured by the United States Marine Corps, will be supplied over the next decade. Well, let's hope. Let's hope that none of those end up being deployed to Greenland, shall we? Just throwing that out there. Yes, I'll be back tomorrow for yet more of the same. Until then, everybody, have a fine and splendid day, and I'll see you all very, very soon. All the best.